Today we'll study into the difference between the yuan and the offshore yuan. What are their difference and where is the mid and long-term direction heading for the China yuan? But before we get into this topic, please do take some time to read into the disclaimer below. Now again, the first part we're going to discuss about their difference, and then second part we're going to discuss about the mid to long-term direction. Now to understand the direction of yuan, we have to understand where is the US dollars heading, because when I talk about yuan, all currency, in fact, it is a pair. When I say yuan, I'm also referring to the US dollars versus yuan. So when US dollars going down or dollar yuan heading down, it means that dollar is depreciating, whereas the yuan is appreciating. Now let's look at the dollar index. And we're going to make reference to the dollar index that we could see the dollar index have peaked in September. And what is dollar index basically is US dollars against a basket of their trading partners, a few of them. And it peaked in September. And as of the recent low, the dollar has depreciated about 12%. I know 12% for stock investor, it may be a fraction, but between countries in their trade, 12%, it means a great deal. Between import-export between countries, that is a great deal to me. Now, of course, today I hope to discuss about the fundamental reason, but I think I just want to stay really focused on the technical reason, because I want to showcase that technical reason. For technical study, we can as so acute to identify reversal. Now, one of the reasons here is that in this weekly case study forum that I shared on the 3rd of October 2022, that was last year, that's what I've put it up here. After the September close, we discussed about this inverted hammer. It was such a beautiful inverted hammer throughout the history of dollar index, and I put it for discussion here. I asked 3 questions. Number 1, I say, could you spot a biting point? It means that biting point, either hammer or inverted hammer or different combination of hammer, that those that carry high weighting. And question 2, I asked that based on your reply to question 1, do you think that this biting point is of a good weighting? And number 3, I also asked that you may attempt this question, but based on the reply in question 1, what do you think that will happen to the US dollars, and also likely the impact to the market? And your reply that US dollars should correct. And I think he's referring to the US dollars, that I will short the US dollars by late October in anticipation of a resumption of downtrend. And Grace also said that the US dollars had a very interesting development lately, and that was October last year, based on just very technical study, and we could see that the US dollars have depreciated about 12%. Now, so moving forward, to understand the US dollars direction, we have to understand the fundamental, and technical to me is still moving downwards, and later on we're going to study into the comparison between the yuan and the US dollars to chart out the mid to long-term direction. But fundamentally, it have to gel as well. We've got to ask yourself, what could be the fundamental reason that US dollars is likely is going to continue to depreciate, not just against the yuan, but against the basket of other currency as well. But today we're going to study the difference. I'm going to take the opportunity to give you a understanding about the difference between an offshore yuan and a yuan. Now, this is yuan, and yuan is also known as RMB. It is the official currency of China. It is both used onshore in China, mainland China, and offshore in international market. Then how about the offshore yuan? Now, it is also known as CNH. Now, what does CNH stand for? It stands for China Yuan Hong Kong. Now, in this version of the yuan, it is traded outside of mainland China. It is traded in offshore financial centers such as Hong Kong, Singapore, and London. And the offshore yuan is not subject to the same restriction and regulation as onshore yuan. And the main difference, I would say, that between both is that the onshore yuan is subject to capital control imposed by the Chinese government, while the offshore yuan, it is not subject to these same regulation. This means that the offshore yuan is more freely tradable, and it can be used for a wider range of international transactions, such as international trade and investment, while onshore yuan is more restricted in use. Now, so as a trader and investor, personally, I will look at the offshore yuan. Of course, when as a traveler to China, and of course we are going to look at the yuan or renminbi itself. But I'm just going to share with you that the similarity between the two. And currently, this is live market, the onshore yuan. Let me just break it down here so that I have a point of reference that this is the onshore yuan. The offshore yuan is almost about the same, so not much of the difference. And the other point I want to point out to you is that over this period, and of course this offshore yuan is traded in an exchange, and it launched somewhere in 2013. But the point I'm trying to share with you here is that it moved in tandem together. Even at this point, it is almost the same, whether is it the spot price or the future price where it's tradable in the offshore yuan. They are moving in synchronization in tandem together. Now let's look at where is the direction of the offshore yuan. And I'm going to include this indicator here. And what I like to use is called MACD. Yeah. And I'm not too sure you're seeing this, but what I'm seeing here is that there's this divergence. Now we could see that basically this is dollar yuan. Oops, I'm going to clear this out. This is dollar yuan. Now, as dollar yuan move higher, it means that the US dollars against the yuan, US dollars higher, yuan is weaker. So is the same as the offshore yuan. That's the currency that I'm trading right now. Yeah. And yes, dollar, or rather offshore yuan or the yuan itself is moving higher. But one thing I noticed over the span of the last many years, since about 2016, is this. I'm seeing that there's a divergence here, where I'm going to explain to you what is the meaning of divergence. Yeah, it's going to take years to brew. Okay. And basically how to understand divergence is that as the price moving higher, or the US dollars moving higher against the yuan, or you can try on other currency, it should be the same demonstration as well. But what I'm seeing here from the peak to peak, and the peak of the MACD is a lower high. It is lower high, whereas the price itself is a higher high. Now this indicates to me that the strength of the offshore yuan or the dollar yuan, the strength of this bullishness may not be too sustainable. So look out for events, or look out for technical break, or it could be an event that cause the offshore yuan to continue to move down. So this is my view for the offshore yuan, and of course I've included some of the information and its link on how to trade and hedge into the different types of yuan. And I hope that enjoying this explanation between the difference between offshore yuan, and what is the mid and future direction of the offshore yuan. And please also include and track the development that's coming ahead in the next few weeks, next few months, or even years ahead. So always enjoy studying the correlation between the markets, and I hope today's sharing, it will be helpful in how we invest and trade. So feel free to leave any comments below. I love to exchange ideas with you. Really happy that we stay through this tutorial. You have many great trading weeks ahead.